Hi, welcome to the Worthy Physician Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Sapna Shah-Hawk, a board-certified internal medicine physician. On this episode, I sat down and talked to Dr. Felecia Froe. She's a urologist, but also a real estate investor. She has created a company called Money with Mission. She discusses her personal experience with burnout and also how it led her, a physician, to provide her knowledge in other ways that impact people in a community in which she resides. She gives great insight as to how physicians can be more than just a physician and really tap into our creativity. Being a physician is only part of what we do and part of what we are capable of. It is not all of who we are and only what we do.
So thank you for coming on today. And I'd like you to introduce yourself and how we became introduced.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. I always love doing podcast interviews and talking to people, just meeting new people. So I am Felecia Froe, Dr. Felecia Froe. I'm a urologist. I've been a urologist I keep counting, and I said for the past 10 years, for like 20 years, and now it's been a little bit more than 20 years. Have just recently shifted my practice to locums and mostly even telemedicine locums. Did full-time urology for all those years until about 3 years ago in multiple different practices. Multiple different settings, trying to figure out what it was about this thing that wasn't sitting right with me. I didn't figure out why I kept changing until much later in the time, but ultimately did that. I am now I'm still a physician. I have a company called Money with Mission, where we're helping female physicians, surgeons, proceduralists invest and have multiple streams of income so that they can have options in their careers. Which is what I think would have helped me maybe stick in there a little longer in a full-time practice.
So tell me about what led you to make the change or the expansion into what you're doing with Money with Mission.
Yeah, it was a long time coming. I honestly realized about 5 years into medicine that I would not be doing it for the rest of my life. And like I said, it took me a long time to figure out the why of that. And there are multiple reasons, but my first practice was a large a large single specialty practice in St. Paul, Minnesota. I learned so much about female urology. I ultimately said, okay, if I'm going to do urology, I love this female part. So started doing that. And my practice, the majority of the time, was female urology, but it just medicine for me never felt like it was all I was ever going to do. And like I said, it was about 3 to 5 years in. I was like, this isn't it. I'm not quite here. I moved from that practice and actually did a solo practice for about 7 years. And that's when I really got to oh no, this isn't working. I think at that point, I was probably really burned out. It was just all the things about medicine that were just not working. Before we got on this call, I was thinking, I don't know, was I really burned out, or was I didn't like medicine as it is practice? And I think a combination of the two, because when I think back on those 7 years, it was a true, like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this. I never got to suicidal. I never got to anything like that, but it was just, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous on how this is working. Quit medicine. Actually, I didn't quit medicine. I closed my practice and actually went to do locums for 1.5 years there, while we were trying to build our real estate portfolio so that I could quit. Did locums for 1.5 years, and the real estate just did not build like we wanted it to in that first few years. And then 2008 happened.
Yeah.
And they really didn't build. It was like over at that point. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to keep practicing medicine. So if I'm going to do this, I'm going someplace I really want to be and I really love to be. And I was ready to be out of the United States at that point, but I didn't speak another language. I still don't speak another language, which is so embarrassing to me. So we moved to Hawaii, which was far enough. It was still the United States, obviously, but it was like not the United States because it was so far away.
Right.
I loved Hawaii. I still love Hawaii. Medicine was still medicine, but it was easier to do because I had a pretty drive on the way to work. It was just a much more, I don't know, I'm going to call it comforting setting for me. Still all over that time, wanting to get into real estate, wanting to get back into real estate. We really hit bottom as far as our real estate is concerned at that point.
Right.
And our marriage had been having a hard time for a while, ended up getting divorced in Hawaii. And then realized I really wanted to get back into real estate. So I had to make a choice. I can stay in Hawaii and live the Hawaiian life and not have enough money to get back into real estate, or leave Hawaii looking for a job that was going to give me a signing bonus, get me back into real estate, which is what I did. Moved to Northern California, got a huge signing bonus to come there because it was a place where evidently not a lot of people want to go. And got enough money to buy 4 houses, a couple cars. My credit was crap, if you can imagine, from all that we lost. I don't even say that. We lost everything in our original real estate portfolio. We had 18 single family houses. It was a mess. A big learning experience. I learned so much from that. So my credit was crap. I couldn't buy anything, basically. That's not true. I could buy, but interest rates were going to be like prohibitive to make anything really work.
Sure.
So I bought houses with cash. And if anybody remembers, at the end of the 2010, 2011, houses were cheap. So yes. I bought 4 houses with $250,000, rehabbed them all, got renters in them all, and I was back in the game. Still practicing medicine. That was right back when I went to my last practice that I've been in. That was about 11 years ago. And ultimately learned about real estate syndication and how to invest as a group is what a syndication is. You can buy, you look at these big apartment complexes out in the world and you're like, who owns those? A bunch of people got together and bought those. That's a syndication.
Right.
Learned about that. And most syndications seem to be multifamily. You can syndicate a lot of things, but seem to be multifamily apartment complexes, which I did that, but it was kind of boring. I don't know. It makes money, but it just didn't move me. And it was like, yes, just like in medicine, I can keep doing this, but it's not the thing. Mm-hmm. Learned about residential assisted living, which is small group home assisted living it could be just for the elderly. It could be for elderly with memory problems. It could be what you make it to be. And we did a memory care. We liked that model better than the gigantic we call them big box models, because it was more intimate. It's more of a community than the gigantic ones with long halls. And I don't know if anybody's ever been in a nursing home, but a lot of them smell like urine. You walk in there, it's like the most depressing place in the world. Yeah. Our homes and the homes we visited and the ones we wanted to build were nothing like that. It was a house, and it could be, everybody had their room. It was just much nicer. So that really got me. I really liked that. It felt like doing real estate investing with a purpose. And then this money with mission just kind of evolved over time as to really who I am. I want to invest in real estate and help other people invest in real estate and businesses that are going to have a social impact, something that's going to make a difference in the world, plus bring you a financial return. I believe those two things are possible. We've seen it happen. We see it work. So that's how Money with Mission evolved. I think I got the story out there.
No, that's very informative, because you were able to do medicine and a side gig that became very integral to your existence currently.
Yes.
One thing I know that we had talked about prior to, medicine has changed. It's more corporate, putting money before people. Mm-hmm. I mean, where I work, it is a business, but it's in a smaller community. It's a nonprofit, so it aligns with my values. It still maintains the putting the person first and allowing us as physicians to practice medicine. We have a lot of autonomy. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like when you made those different moves in Minnesota and then private practice, I can't imagine private practice as a urologist, as a solo practitioner, because how did you cover the call schedule? Were you working 7 days a week, or how did that work?
I was, but I did limit my practice to just female urology.
Okay.
So that took a lot of other stuff out. And I aligned myself with the OBGYN group so that all their urology stuff would come to me. Mm-hmm. So that's how that worked. I had a nurse practitioner also who took some call, but she can answer the phone. But most of our call at that point, by the way I limited my practice, was pretty easy to do. Mentally, it was easy to do physically. Mentally is wearing, just because you don't get called on call doesn't mean you're not really tired after you've been on call. And I think anybody listening to this, any physician listening to this understands that thing right there. It's like,
Sure.
all the surgeons who are on call and you're at home, but you can't live because you're waiting for that call. Even if it never comes, you're still waiting for that call. So it's a tough, it was hard. It really was hard. And like I was saying, that ultimately what you talked about is that the business part of medicine just doesn't make sense to me. And that and it was in that solo practice that I realized that I have to see so many people just to cover my rent, my employees, and that stress when your employees are counting on you, your employees' families are counting on them to have trying to run people through on that treadmill, that factory, what do you call that thing? The factory mill that just kind of running through it's not medicine to me.
Right.
I don't know what you call that, but I like building the relationship. I like getting to understand my patients' lives, because I think a lot of times they come in with a symptom of something much bigger than we even ever have time to treat or figure out in our 10 minutes that we get with them. So that just never has set very well with me. And I couldn't figure out how to have the time with patients that I felt like I really needed to help them and help me figure out what's going on, and still make money and support the business that I needed to support. Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, we do have to realize that medical practice is a business because we have to keep the doors open, whether we like it or not. The money keeps the doors open. But I think it's the intersection of where the art and practice of medicine has been trumped by big business. I mean, we as physicians have no control over our overhead cost. It was the manufacturers, the insurance companies that have continued to decrease payment, which is going to be interesting in the next 1 to 2 years with the inflation and the cost of everything going up and the insurance company trying to drive physician reimbursement down. So that's going to be an interesting model to look over the next couple of years. But
I think it's going to be very, very interesting. And, with the growth of algorithms, with the growth of, I'm evidence-based medicine, I'm air quoting evidence on that, because some of the things that we do, it's taken the art, just what you said, taking the art completely out of it, where you can just, if you have a stuffy nose, it's either this or this, and it's unrelated to anything else in the world. And those things don't always match. It's just sometimes it's something going on in somebody's life besides an allergy, besides a virus, besides a bacteria, besides the stuff we know in medicine that's causing whatever their symptoms are. And we don't have time to figure that out.
Right. I mean, for example, if somebody has urologic issues, I'm an internist, so I have my run of the gamut, and then it's refer on. But for example, see a lot of individuals with non-specific abdominal pain, and the first visit is abdominal exam, and a lot of times it's benign, and then the labs are fine, and we just do something anecdotal. And then it takes, because of the limited time we have, sometimes it does take a few visits depending on how complex. And we have to remember, you have the psychosocial aspect. And, it's like by the third or fourth visit and you say, I don't know why you're having this abdominal pain. I'm not saying you don't, but then you do a quick social history. Hey, has there been trauma? And now you've just opened Pandora's box because you want to address it, but the system does not allow you to treat that person as a human.
Yep. And trauma, diet. People always talk about, how come doctors never tell me about what I should eat in my nutrition? Because we don't have time to get your history on that kind of stuff, to figure that out.
Right.
I so embarrassingly tell patients, you're going to have to figure that out. But it could be related to something you're eating, something you're drinking, something you're not eating, something you're not, these are things number one, I don't necessarily have the education to help figure that out for you.
Right.
But I don't have the time either to sit and figure that out with you. So it is, I was feeling complicit in a system that I didn't agree with.
Sure.
And that's why I've made the move into the money with mission and really, really working hard to get out of medicine altogether.
But it sounds like you're still making an impact, because some of the properties that we discussed, not just the memory care, but do you mind if I mention what you're doing in Tulsa?
No, 100%. Go right ahead. Because that's important stuff.
Well, I mean, it goes back to looking at patients' lifestyles, right? 100 years ago, physicians were making house calls. We could really see the relationships that our patients had with the family members, which is important. And then not only that, are they safe? Do they have support systems? What are some hazards? Of course, back then compared to now might be different, but we could really see the social environment in which our contributes to health.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that really struck me, and I love the idea, is that in medical school, when we talked about diet and socioeconomic barriers to healthcare. One of that is proper nutrition. And we know that there are food deserts throughout the United States for reasons that are not the residents' fault. It's just, how do you bring a grocery store in? How do you get somebody to buy into an area that might not be so sexy real estate wise? Yeah. So I love the fact that you are investing in a full service grocery in a food desert. Can you please talk about that?
Yep, 100%. Thank you for bringing that up. Here, I moved to Tulsa, which I forgot to even add that part of my story. But we moved to Tulsa. I moved to Tulsa after I had worked with this group of people to open a grocery store in North Tulsa, who had not had a full service grocery store in over 10 years. We've opened the first full service grocery store called Oasis Fresh Markets. It's about 5 blocks away from my house. And I'm also working with an organization, and we started called Fresh RX, where doctors can refer their patients with uncontrolled diabetes to us. They're not letting go of anything, but we are helping by providing fresh food, fresh fruits and vegetables to them, teaching them how to cook them, teaching them more about nutrition so that they can improve their A1Cs. We just finished our first year. Our anniversary, or our graduation ceremony for our first group is next week. And it's amazing. We've had folks lose 20, 30 pounds over the year. Their A1Cs have gone from 10s and 13s down into the 8. If it were 13, they're now down to 9. While they're still not controlled, they are better. And they're just watching the personalities over the year and how much happier people seem to be when they come in. It's amazing to me. And that's all a part of teaching people how to be better in their own lives, how they can make themselves better. It's not always about the pill the doctor's going to give you. It's not all about that insulin. It's not always about those things. Those to me I'd like them to be temporary so that you can get yourself together in the ways of your life so that you don't need to lean on those so much. That's how I think about that. I'm learning so much more about nutrition because I didn't learn it in medical school. Food and soil regeneration and soil health, and how all that contributes to better food and food with more nutrition, and how our current food sources that come from the coast and from the south and the middle of the country is getting this weaker food, especially when it comes to produce.
Right.
And by I say weaker, less nutrient dense.
Yes.
So it leads to, in my mind, and probably we can find it somewhere, but I haven't read it lately or can't quote an article for those who need that. It leads to eating more junk food. Junk food's cheap compared to fresh lettuce, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, all that stuff. It's cheap, which seems crazy to me. I live, like I said, we have a grocery store, first grocery store in 10 years. And in that same 2 blocks are 15 fast food restaurants. It is crazy to me. It drives me nuts.
No, you're preaching to the choir. And while you were talking about the A1Cs, I got this big smile on my face. I'm an internist. I'm somebody that loves numbers. And when somebody can go from an A1C from 13 to 9, that's a win. They're on the right track. One of the biggest, I think, roadblocks is, number one, the patient to buy in to actually make lifestyle changes.
Yes.
So that's awesome. You're getting a cohort of patients that are on the train to success. On those patients, yes, a lot of times medications can be temporary or eventually minimized.
Yep.
But then the other part is that you're actually giving them the tools that they need. When I send patients to a dietitian here in the community or another city close by, just based on preference, it's abysmal that insurance, a lot of times insurance won't cover it, or the copay is a barrier.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm incredibly silly excited about what you're doing. Just that's music to my ears. And I wish we had more resources like that.
Well, we are planning to expand, and we are planning, it's getting expanded. We're working on affordable housing developments, and within the affordable housing developments, building a grocery store, building full service groceries within those developments so that we don't create food deserts. I don't know that food deserts are created on purpose.
Right.
Like the brand or the chain grocery stores, often the profits aren't there for places where there's food deserts. It's not there. And it's about, they have to keep just like doctors and like everybody else, you have to keep your doors open. You have to make money. Our store is like more of a Trader Joe's. It's a little bit bigger than a lot of Trader Joe's. So it's not gigantic. We have everything you could want. Maybe not as many options of brands as you may want.
It's okay.
But you can get everything you need at that store. And the Fresh RX program runs out of the store. We do use local produce. We're supporting the local farmers in the food that we're providing and working really hard to get more of that local produce in the grocery store itself to be sold. Right now we're giving it away, but that supporting local farmers, especially things going on with our climate, especially with things going on in the world, we saw supply chains fall apart with COVID. If you don't have to have a very long supply chain for your food, you're more likely to get your food.
Yes.
So that's a big thing, and we're really working hard. There's the stuff going on here, getting a food hub, which is a food distribution center, so all the local farmers can send their stuff to one place. Mobile grocery stores. I'm on the board of an organization that actually has a gigantic semi that's a grocery store that they take to different neighborhoods for the people that can't even get to this grocery store. So some people can't get to the grocery store that we've built here, North Tulsa, but there's some that can't get there. So they go to those neighborhoods to give those people places to shop. There's a lot of, it amazed me. It surprised me how much is going on in Tulsa. Maybe it's going on in other cities. I just didn't know of the importance of food and nutrition and access to those things, and how it's not necessarily, if you don't think about it, you don't see it's not there. Does that make sense?
Yes. And one thing about a lot of cities here in the Midwest, and there's a lot of rejuvenation as far as staying local, really depending on the community. And that's one thing that I love about where we live is, when I say we, I mean you and Tulsa and me here in Southeast Kansas. There's a lot of synergy going on, I think, just with the culture and really trying to look at the community and what can we do to help each other out, which is something that we don't necessarily always see on the coasts. But having said that, you still are practicing medicine, just in a different way. Yes,
I am. And I still get frustrated at the same things I got frustrated with before.
Sure.
I do in telemedicine more, believe it or not. Yes, a lot of urology appointments can be done over the phone. And people need to be seen for procedures. I get them scheduled for a procedure. Honestly, right now, it's a means to an end. It is something to keep me supported, keep me fed, my dogs fed, and a roof over our heads until Money with Mission is doing its full throttled thing, which is soon to be happening.
That's awesome. But I mean, even with Money with Mission, the root word of physician is, or doctor is docent, which means teacher. And so even if you are not in a brick and mortar building or doing telemedicine, you're still using your resources and your knowledge as a physician, saying, this is where I can impact people the most at the root cause of multiple diseases, making it affordable, because we know that the entry into healthy food, like you had said, is expensive. And if a government can keep us sick with cheap food that is really so processed it should be in the chemistry lab, then doesn't that make it a win for them? Because that just keeps patients going through the door, that puts money in the pharmaceuticals pockets. So
drug companies are, and people, general population, not physicians, who think that a pill and I'm cured of my high blood pressure, I'm cured of my diabetes because I've got this medication. Like, you're not cured of anything. You're managed, and you're tethered to this system.
Right.
It's the craziness of it is unbelievable. You start thinking about, I just watched on Netflix, or I don't remember, maybe it was one of the streaming channels, the story of the opioid crisis and the company that made all the opiates, who really made it not be, who sold it and marketed it as a non-addictive drug.
Right.
That made me so angry. And it was just amazing to me how many different things had to fall in place for that to be able to happen. Even doctors in our busy practices have salespeople coming in telling us something, and we don't necessarily read the stuff that comes with it, because we trusted the FDA to prove and make sure that what these people are telling me is true. The system failures on that are amazing, and are something that we all should know about, so that we can all be paying attention to the drugs we're prescribing to our patients, to know for real that it's safe for them. Right. I don't even, that's, we go there. So eat better. We want to teach our patients to eat better. And if you don't have the time, which so many of us don't have the time ourselves to do it, because patients often push back. I'm talking to a guy yesterday about his urinary frequency and how he's drinking coffee all day long. It's like, well, maybe it's related to the coffee. Well, I didn't have that before. I understand, but you have it now. So it may be related to the coffee. Well, the doctor keeps giving me medicine. Is the medicine working? Well, no. Maybe it's related to the coffee. Right. But there's a whole pushback about it, that it can't be something I'm doing. For a lot of people, for many, they want to know, what am I doing and what can you tell me that I'm doing that I can make this go away, and I don't have to be on the drugs that you can give me. And right. That takes time to figure out, what are you doing or not doing? Right. And we get in this whole catch-22. I think the doctors that are building these concierge services where they can actually spend the time are on the right track, but that does leave out all those folks who don't have the money for the concierge doctor. Right. They're back in the system, and the system that we're doing our best with right now. Right. Yeah, I don't know what's the right answer. I want to tear it all down and build it again, and I know that's not necessarily a logical thing to do, but that's what I want to do.
Oh, you and me both. You and me both. I mean, because it's there's so many factors, aren't there? There are barriers to healthcare. Sure, there's the insurance, whether a physician is in network or not. Then there is the Medicare Disadvantage plans, right? Because they don't cover squat, but they're cheaper. But you save on one end, but you're skewed on the other. Yep. And then there's everybody.
You're not getting tests. You're not getting tests that you should have, and doctors still have our liability that we have to cover. Yes. Our medical malpractice. And you never know which one of these folks out front that's not getting that CT scan or that MRI that you really think they need because they can't afford it is going to come back on you later on. So then we're spending all this time this system drives me nuts. You're spending all this time documenting that you recommended this, but they said they didn't. And the fact, it's a disservice to doctors that we have to think in this way, to remember to document all the things that we think they should have, but somebody's saying they can't have, or they can't afford, or whatever. It's just, it takes away medicine. It took away the pleasure of a doctor-patient relationship. I love meeting people, all of them, right? Patients, other doctors, I'd love it all, but I want to build a relationship. And if I don't have time to talk to you or you don't come in prepared, that's the other side. True. Patients come in, and how many have you talked to as a specialist? I was like, why did your doctor refer you? I don't know. Like, oh crap. Okay. We're gonna have to figure this one out. Right. Our time is cut. So what do? You order tests. You order tests so that you make sure you don't miss something. Even if you could have spent the time, you would have known you didn't do that test, which to me spirals up the cost of medicine as opposed to spiraling down the cost.
Sure.
That's just spending more time would, to me, decrease the cost of medicine. We haven't figured that out yet.
Right. No. And even if you try to bill for your time, it still does not compensate as well as seeing.
No.
So the compensation model is really leaves a lot to be desired. Again, it's not that we're trying to milk patients. I have no control over how much my clinic bills. I just see patients. I do my note. That's up to the billing part. But that's one reason why I never want to go into private practice, is because I did not want to have to do the business side and the medicine side. I just want to focus on medicine and maybe business elsewhere. But do
you think that more new grads and those out of residency are going to go more into those employed type positions so that they don't have to deal with the entrepreneur side of medicine, which is completely out of your control? An entrepreneur wants to be in control as many things as you can.
Sure.
Your income, your output, whatever, all that stuff. You can't control, to me, anything in your medical practice except whether you show up every day. You can't even control whether your patients show up. You can't control whether they get their test. You can't control whether they take their medication. You can't control anything other than whether you show up every day. So I wonder if more people will go into that more employed model, and then we'll have I don't know what all the things that could lead to. We could probably spend another. It's all very interesting to me. It's all very to see where this is going to go.
I think that the upcoming physicians, I think they are, from the ones that I've talked to, and it is, this is just a small cut, the ones that I work with as rural rotation, I think that they're looking more at work-life balance.
Yeah.
Because that's a really big thing. And yes, back in 40 years ago, it was okay to work 7 days a week. But I think as the intensity of medicine and the amount that we have to know, it is a hell of a lot more now than it was 40 years ago, when we had like 5 drugs for almost every, 5 drugs, 10 drugs. We did not have as much very aggressive treatment on almost everything. Having said that, plus the overhead cost, depending on which specialty you go into, plus reimbursement, I think it's going to depend on the personality and the specialty or subspecialty which they choose.
Oh, I'm seeing more people going into employed all the way around. I really do. Even though, like I said, the model, especially if someone other than physicians are leading that, makes it that's a whole nother set of challenges that you have to deal with.
Right.
And having physicians leading the group who haven't been in practice for a long time, who don't know what the day-to-day is for us anymore, it makes it challenging. So I guess a model where there's a rotation of who's leading at some regular interval, and you're employed, those kind of things. I don't know. It just, there's a lot to be desired. We'll see where this ends up. I do still think money is going to be a big part of it. I really worry that folks without that right now have difficulty accessing care will get care, but it'll be a different care than somebody who has money. Someone who has money ultimately may be able to actually have a person taking care of them, whereas someone who does not have money may ultimately end up having, like we're having on when we call a business now, when you get on their phone tree, you end up having a robot taking care of you, based on symptoms. And the algorithms that we're seeing, to me, leads to that kind of robotic medicine. And the art of it, it's all just the science, not the art that goes with it anymore. And I mean, that's what I see potentially happening. I hope it never does, but
I think we're going to see that probably on the coast in the bigger cities. I think it's going to be, I find that this part of the country falls 5 years behind as far as those type of big changes or big trends. Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because then it gives us time to think. And being here in the Midwest, patients really like that physician-patient relationship. Though we might need to extend telemedicine, I hope that the laws stay in place, because it has opened up access to individuals that cannot get out of the house, have transportation issues. Gas prices are astronomical. I have patients that have to choose between paying electricity and getting up to a specialist appointment 50 miles away.
Yeah.
Now it's 100 miles round trip. I hope that the telemedicine stays in place and is reimbursed as it is, because that is very efficient for both parties. Though it does have its limitations, it is a step in the right direction, I believe.
Yeah, definitely has its limitations. And so that's what I was going to say, for the right disease processes. But when somebody needs to be seen, they need to be seen. And
right.
That's the end of the conversation. You just need to be seen.
Yes.
But for initial appointments, it keeps, for us, for urology and the practice, I mean, it keeps people from having to come in, go home, come back for a procedure. You can talk them through the procedure you think they're going to need. Then they come in and they have the procedure, as opposed to those back and forths. Or I remember in private practice, the churning that we would have, you get lab, now you got to come back and get your lab results. And I'm like, no, it's just craziness. I could call you with that if there's something abnormal. And if you want to come in and look at me in the face to get that result, then come in, we can do that. In years past, you didn't get paid for calling a patient to give them their lab results. And so you had to bring them in. Time, it's your time. You should get paid. So all those things are, to me, there's so much redundant, there's so much unnecessary things because we don't get paid for so many things that we actually do, that if we could start getting paid, even if it's at a lesser, can't be a lesser rate, because you're still using everything you ever learned and all your education and experience to make a diagnosis based on lab, even if I'm just calling you with the result.
Right.
So this whole thing,
well, I've also seen multiple physicians say we should get paid by lawyers, or not by lawyers, but as lawyers bill per time increment. And that is because, number one, we did 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, 3+ more years of residency or fellowship. So that's a decade of training and expertise. Then we have spent multiple years practicing. And so for me to look at a lab, look at a patient's history, know the patient and saying, okay, this is what I think is going on, me taking that 30 seconds to generate that differential diagnosis and what the next steps are, I needed that 10 years. So you're not paying for the 30 seconds, you're paying for that 10 years of knowledge.
Yep. 100% agree. We got to get together and change the whole thing. And this is why Money with Mission was born, and why I work with the people that I work with, because I, burnout and tired of, and I can't work 7 days a week. I don't want to do another job, but I can't do this one 7 days a week to make this happen. So having streams of income from other places takes the pressure off. And that was the whole thing for me. I don't necessarily want everybody to quit medicine, because we need to do what we need to do. But if you don't have to practice medicine, if that's not I gotta do all the things I have to do, it just makes it possibly a more pleasurable thing to do. And it makes us all healthier when we know we have options and choices for how we spend our days.
But not only that, but we can have a better, maybe, work-life balance.
Yes.
And also remember, physicians are humans as well. So we have needs that we need to address as well. Taking care of the self is important, because in the big conglomerate of medicine, I'm replaceable within an hour. I mean, I've seen it happen. And so tell me a little bit more about Money with Mission. You said that you focus on female physicians. Is that correct?
It is. And why? Because that's who I like talking to and working with, and just can form that relationship that I want to have. I want to have a relationship. For me, what you do with your money is a very, very personal thing. And women we make it personal, but we don't make investing personal. We take our money, and I make it very black and white. If you have a 401k, you're putting your money in a suitcase and you're giving it to somebody that you don't know to manage for you, and hope that when your retirement day comes, there's going to be money there.
Right.
When you know your person that you're investing with in a syndication, which you always should, don't give your money in a syndication to somebody you don't know. You want to know them. You want their phone number in your phone. You want to know how you're going to get in touch with them if something's not going right or something you don't understand. So you build that relationship, and then you decide you want to invest with them. And you go. Are there risks? 100% there are risks. There's always risks. Your person who took your money from your bucket full of money and went off to do with it with God knows what is not talking to you about the risks. The person that you know personally, you call me on the phone, we start talking about an investment. What are the risks? What's the chances I'm never going to see my money again? That's a conversation we have to have. And
Right.
when money's not coming the way you expect it to come, you call me to understand why. If I haven't called you first, which is usually the case, I'm calling you first so that you know why your money's not coming like it should be. So money with mission is, I like I said, I work with female physicians, and and that's not to say I don't have guys invested in my stuff. I 100% have guys invested in things. It's just that the people that I talk to, when I'm talking about, and when I'm doing podcasts, I'm talking to women, just because you got to pick somebody to talk to. And that's who I relate to, obviously, because I'm a woman physician. I've gone through the surgery part. I've gone through all those things. We've gone through those things that some guys just don't see. They don't. I know how it felt to have kids and have to go off and leave at 6:30 in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning to get to do your cases at 7:30, and your husband or whoever else you dropped your kids off at daycare or wherever so early. That's a stressful thing. It's a hard thing, especially with your first kid. You're doing these. There's so much going on there. So that's why I like talking to women physicians. Bottom line. And then it's just about, to me, us having options. I feel like I have stayed in medicine for so long because of lack of that option, understanding it. And my goal is for you to shorten your time frame to understanding and being able to invest and bringing you investment so that you can have something that's going to get you that return and help you be able to live the life you want to live with the choices that you want to, and make the choices that you want to make, not based on finances, but because I can do this because I want to, or not that I have to, my child is sick and I have to take him to daycare anyway because I got to go do these cases. It's just the choices, bottom line.
Sure.
Money gives you choices. It's not money for money's sake. It's money for choices.
Right. And somebody could also take that and leave corporate medicine and do their own thing, whether it's practicing medicine in an underserved area or a free clinic. So it also gives you options to reinvest in your community as well, if you so happen to want to do that.
Yes. That impact, whether you have your impact when you first invest, or you can invest in something that's going to have impact in and of itself, or you can invest for your own return period so that you can have an impact that you want to have later on. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
Multiple streams of income is the basic thing I'm going for. So
right.
I know a lot of people, if what I'm doing is not getting you the return you want, we can still talk. I'll introduce you to people I trust and know.
Right.
We're going to take care of you. That's my bottom line. And there's so many things in medicine that are translatable to something else.
Yes.
When I was first talking about leaving, I was telling these other doctors, and they go, "What else can you do? You're a doctor. There's not," like, you've got to be kidding me. We can do so many things. We learn how to relate to people. We learn how to diagnose things. That is translatable across the board to so many things. So that's a big thing for us to understand, is that we are really, really smart people. Right. And the skills that we've built becoming physicians and being physicians can go everywhere, can take you so many places. So
absolutely.
I'm preaching that one.
No, but I think it brings home a point that we as physicians, we are very bright. Unfortunately, I think it comes with the territory that we're taught in medical school, that you're a physician and that's pretty much all that you are. And so this physician title has you almost in a chokehold, for lack of a better term. Exactly. Yep. And we need to really rethink that and backtrack and say, okay, I'm a physician, but I'm more than that. And I have other interests in that other than medicine, as well as, hey, I can do so many things, and physician is only one thing I can do, but I can use my critical thinking skills and my creativity to build upon other things, give myself multiple streams of income potentially, and make life better. Yeah.
That's one thing I think we don't think about as physicians, is how creative we are.
Right.
We freaking creative people.
Yeah.
And just think about how many times you come up with an answer to something that you're like, I got no clue what you're talking about. I've got no clue what you're talking about. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's what we could do about that. It's just like, it happens all the time, and it happens fast. You don't even realize you just created that answer. It just happens so fast. So we don't give ourselves we don't give ourselves the credit that we deserve. I'm just a doctor. I mean, yes, we're high paid people. Nobody's like another doctor I interviewed with. It's like, nobody's going to cry about how much money we make. We make plenty of money. It's about having the options and realizing your talents and doing things that make you happy, because happy is the only thing we can choose for ourselves, and just living the life you want to live. That's where I am.
Right. And just to clarify, money does not make somebody happy. It is living the life that you want, that you have envisioned and that you've worked toward, that makes someone happy.
Yes. And some people don't. You could go live off the land and make everything happen without having a dime. That floats your boat. Go do that.
Yeah.
Go do that. If more people were happy, would be so much less of the crap we got going on in the world.
Well, I mean, just
our other public health problems that we have going on in the world that are not considered health.
They kind of fall into the same category as food or access to actual. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir there.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time. And what are some pearls that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
We'll start with the last one we just talked about. You are more creative than you think you are. Yeah. Your skills as a physician translate to so many other things. If medicine is not your be all end all, think about how many things those translate into. If you want to work with me and learning how to build wealth and leave your legacy, you can start by grabbing my ebook, How to Create Wealth That Outlives You, at legacy at moneywithmission.com. Go there. You can go to my website, moneywithmission.com, schedule a call. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I want to get to know you. I want to build a relationship with you. If we want to talk about money, we'll talk about money. If we don't, we don't. Just let me know. I love meeting people. I've met so many amazing physicians, so many doing so many other things outside of medicine, outside of even real estate investing, just helping people understand, most of us are working with other physicians, figuring out how to deal with medicine.
Right.
So I'd love meeting people. So call me up, schedule a meeting. Let's talk.
It's nice to see the human side of a physician. It's nice to see the human side of medicine outside the box.
Yep. I agree. I 100% agree. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us today. Subscribe, tell a friend, follow us at www.theworthyphysician.com.
Start again the second time.